The Death Mage Who Doesn't Want a Fourth Time. Chapter 77. Abandoning the Duchy, Unable to Forgive the Enemy. "Hang on a second, will you?" said the adventurer, casually approaching the reception counter that Vandaloo had frozen stiff in front of. "It's the first time I've heard of this rule change. Can you explain what you mean?" You're troubling me. I'm currently dealing with this child," the receptionist began. "I have something I want to say about how you're dealing with him. Can you call the guildmaster for me?" said the adventurer. "You're troubling me," the receptionist repeated. "If you want to make an appeal to the guild, then, when it is your turn, please tell one of us staff members at the reception counters first." "I am the A-class adventurer Heinz. I'd like to request a face-to-face meeting with the guildmaster once more, under the authority of an A-class adventurer."
Heinz. It was Heinz.
Vandaloo turned his head as if it was on a creaking hinge, looking at the adventurer standing next to him. He was a well-featured, strong-willed young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was in his early to mid-20s. It was clear from one look at his appearance and equipment that he wasn't an ordinary person. Though it had changed a little, he had the same voice that Vandaloo had heard in Evbegia, and he matched the physical description given by Riley. Mom's enemy, the blue-flamed sword Heinz. He was one of the people whom Vandaloo absolutely needed to kill. Vandaloo had heard that Heinz had crossed over to the Orbom Kingdom, but he had not imagined that Heinz would be staying in the Hartner Duchy, nor had he imagined that he would encounter him at this moment. The resurrection of Darcia was something that was absolutely needed for Vandaloo's pursuit of happiness, and those who interfered with that needed to be eliminated. That was why he would kill Heinz. Selling his mother to a fanatic worshipper of Alda had simply been another request for Heinz. It didn't matter if his actions were completely normal and legal in that nation. It didn't matter what Heinz was thinking and doing now. The problem was the future, what lay ahead. He had sold Darcia to a religious fanatic once. What reason did Vandaloo have to believe that he wouldn't do the same again? If he had already changed his viewpoint once, who was to say that he wouldn't change it again? In order to reduce those possibilities to zero, Heinz needed to be killed and destroyed. Now was a good opportunity to do that. Of course, Vandaloo couldn't do anything flashy in a place like this, where people were watching. He knew that. He could simply poison him or infect him with a disease. Should he turn his breath, a small amount of his saliva, or the substances secreted by his skin into poison? Should he accidentally touch Heinz and infect him with pathogens? Vandaloo started coming up with these plans, but every time he thought about them, he heard the warnings of danger sense death in his head. If he tried to poison Heinz, he would be killed. If he tried to infect Heinz with pathogens, he would be killed. Either way, the one who would die was not Heinz, but Vandaloo. Impossible! Is this guy invincible or immortal or something? He was far too different compared to when he had worked for High Priest Gordon. Vandaloo was astonished at this change, but he could not deny the reality in front of him or the death attribute magic spell that had saved him up until now. "I see. This is an A-class adventurer worthy of becoming S-class like Mikhail, the one who is powerful enough to slay Borkus and the others in an instant. Someone who would defeat A-class adventurers who were supposed to be superhumans with ease. A superhuman that transcended superhumans. Heinz was far too different from Riley, whose soul had been broken by Vandaloo after his defeat at Borkus's hands. And it was even said that Heinz was far more blessed when it came to allies than Riley had ever been. Vandaloo moved his eyes and looked far past Heinz to see that there were 5 more people standing there. 2 of them matched the descriptions that he had heard from Riley. The female dwarf shield-bearer with blue hair, Deliza. The male scout with black hair and black eyes, Edgar. The other two were perhaps new party members, a female elf with a mace and a priest's garb, and a young woman who appeared to be an unarmed fighter. Heinz wouldn't have chosen them just for their looks, so they were probably A-class and B-class as well, C-class at worst. This must be the new five-colored Blades, with two new members taking the place of Riley and the female elf spiritual mage, who apparently perished in a dungeon. The fifth additional member, a girl of Vandalu's age or even younger, who was half hiding behind Eliza, was probably not a party member. Was she someone's younger sister? Ah, how troublesome. They're the worst kinds of enemies for me. Even excluding the girl, he could tell by looking at the other four. It was because of these people that Vandalu didn't even have a fraction of a percent of a chance of killing Heinz. They were watching Heinz with wry smiles and exasperated expressions, muttering words like, "Good grief," and "Here we go again." But if anything were to happen to Heinz, they would back him up with swift speed and precision. If Heinz were to fight Vandalu with these party members with him, there was no doubt that he would utilize his ability to coordinate with them and deliver a blow capable of piercing Vandalu's barriers. Poisoning them or infecting them with pathogens would be futile. Unlike the soldiers of the Merg Shield Nation's expedition army, they were equipped to deal with high-rank monsters that infected status effects with their attacks. They were different even from the self-conceited Riley. They were ridiculously strong. Their mana pools were irrelevant. If Vandalu was an enormous elephant, they were ants capable of killing such an elephant. I have no choice. I have to endure this humiliation for now. I mustn't die. There are things I need to do. I'll be satisfied with being able to see these guys' face directly. I'll regroup with Eleonora and the others and... Huh? What are these guys? What is Heinz doing? Vandalu, who had been using his high-speed thought-processing skill to immerse himself in his thoughts in an attempt to endure the feeling of powerlessness and humiliation that tormented his entire body, was suddenly startled as he began processing the information from his ears. "Please, wait. The Guildmaster is currently out of his office." "Then a sub-master should be here. The rules state that when the Guildmaster is absent, one of the two sub-masters will always remain inside the guild. Or has that rule changed as well?" Heinz was currently arguing not with the receptionist but a male staff member who appeared to be her senior. But the situation was looking worse for the staff member. "That is... I know that there's no point in saying this to you," said Heinz. "The same goes for the Guildmaster of the Guild's Nearchy branch, but there's something I want the Guildmaster to write. I want him to write a letter of introduction to meet the Guildmaster of the Adventurers Guild headquarters of the Hartner Duchy." "If our Guildmaster writes something like that, doesn't that mean that he's endorsing you?" said the staff member. Heinz pressed the staff member further. "So he can't do it, even though he can approve such a meaningless rule change? This isn't something that can be decided by a mere staff member," the staff member protested. "Any guild employee would know that this meaningless rule change is a non-committal decision made by Lord Belton in order to gain support of the churches, including the Church of Alda, because he can't gain support of the Duchy's army in his familial dispute," said Heinz. "It's something that even I could figure out right away after all." Apparently, many of the current important figures in the Hartner Duchy's Church of Alda were fundamentalists rather than members of the peaceful faction. "Children with monster blood are dangerous, so they can't be judged through a single examination. They could lose their self-control at any moment, so letting them into the adventurers' school is also dangerous. Do you guys really believe such things?" Heinz asked. The more Heinz spoke, the paler the male staff member's face grew, and the more he struggled to maintain eye contact. It was likely that he secretly agreed with Heinz's words. It seemed that the same went for the other staff members and receptionists. The other adventurers present voiced their agreement. What's the problem? You just have to deliver a message. That's right. The doors of the Adventurers Guild are wide open, aren't they? You're not planning to keep us beast people out soon, are you? And then the male staff member seemed to come to a decision. I understand, he said, but the only thing I can do is pass the message on to the guild master. I know, said Heinz. That'll be enough. I'll warn you, as an A-class adventurer, you already possess more influence than a lower nobleman, the staff member told him. Your intention will be known to the lords, but please do not forget that it is up to the lords as to how to interpret your intentions. I know that too, said Heinz, not as a member of Alda's peaceful faction, but as an adventurer. I believe that the guild should not obey the will of politicians. That's all I wanted to say. The doors to adventure are open to members of all races. We shouldn't ignore the words of our founder, should we? I like those words, too, said the staff member. Now then, I will send a messenger to the guildmaster, so excuse me. You're lucky, aren't you? He said, smiling at Vandaloo. With the staff member's words, Vandaloo's brain finally started functioning again. Lucky? Why? Because he had been able to see his enemy's appearance and a part of his power? No, that wasn't it. Could it be Heinz is helping me? Impossible! As Vandaloo directed his gaze towards Heinz to see him giving Vandaloo a nod with a reassuring, reliable smile, as if to say, leave it to me. However, rather than being assured, Vandaloo was going mad. Why do I have to be helped? Don't mess with me. Isn't this some kind of trap? There's another side to this. There has to be. There's something fishy about this. It's strange. I'm not convinced. Feeling an unpleasant sensation that felt like his brain, spirit, and even his soul were turning into mush, Vandaloo was unable to even gather his thoughts. The parallel thought processing and high-speed thought processing skills served only to further increase his confusion. He could not calm down. Good grief. Who was it that said he's not interested in politics? The moment we finish our escort request and arrive in the city, this happens. And now you're planning to complain to the next duke and the guildmaster of the Duchy's guild headquarters, said Heinz's male party member. But, Edgar, he's been saying it all along, hasn't he? Said another. That Alda's teaching should be changed to be more peaceful, and even going as far as to split up with Riley to come to this country was Heinz's. But I remember hearing that this party's objective was to completely clear the Wandering Dungeon, the trial of Zakhart, said a third party member, a woman. Please, don't say that, said another party member. Or do you mean to say that you think Heinz's words are mistaken, Jennifer? That's not what I meant, said the woman called Jennifer. Vandaloo could hear Heinz's companions conversing as if these things could not be helped, though none of them showed any signs of opposing Heinz's words. Hey, is Heinz the one that belongs to Alda's peaceful faction? That's right. I heard that in the Merg Shield Nation he witnessed a tragedy of a certain Dampier and his mother, and that's why he came to this country. That's why he's helping a Dampier now. A-class adventurer Samas really are something else. Vandaloo could hear the voices of other adventurers. In summary, Heinz and his companions changed their views when they saw Mom burned at the stake after they captured her and handed her over. Now they're part of Alda's peaceful faction and work in the Orbomb Kingdom. So that's why they're helping a Dampier. Helping? It's all right, said the little girl who was with Heinz's companions. She was right in front of Vandaloo, who, despite his inner thoughts, appeared to be simply standing there motionlessly. She took his hand as she continued speaking. Heinz Oni-chan is going to help you, just like he helped me, she said, laughing. One of her eyes was a red blood color that didn't match her other eye. Vandaloo's hand trembled. Nausea, a headache, and a sense of discomfort, the likes of which he had never experienced in his third lifetime, ran through his body. "Yeah!" the little girl cried in surprise. Unable to stand it any more, Vandaloo had shaken her hand off. In doing so, he had kept his claws withdrawn and controlled his strength so that he did not injure her. That was the limit of how much he could hold back. "Hey, you!" Startled, Heinz reached out towards Vandaloo, but Vandaloo put all of his effort into putting as much distance between himself and Heinz as possible. He used all 4 limbs to propel himself along the floor and used flight in a way that excessive force was exerted on his internal organs. "Oi, wait a second. What's wrong?" Ignoring the surprised voices of Heinz's companions and the other adventurers, Vandaloo used his shoulder to smash through the door to the guild and fled. Vandaloo was sitting on the ground, staring at his trembling hands. He was already outside the city of Niarki, probably inside a nearby forest or thicket. It was unlikely that he had traveled very far. He had no memory whatsoever of how he exited the city after leaving the guild. It was possible that he had created a hole in the outer wall to escape. Vandaloo's mind was in so much chaos that he did not have the time to worry about such things. He felt as if his entire body would rot away with the anger, humiliation, and powerlessness that he felt. He had been completely unable to defeat his enemy. He knew without even challenging him that it would end in utter defeat. He had previously imagined that this would be the ultimate humiliation. But an even greater humiliation existed, being pitied by his enemy, by Heinz. Vandaloo was almost helped by him. It was an action that trampled over Vandaloo's pride. But the thing that Vandaloo found the most unforgivable was the reason that Heinz had tried to help him. He had tried to help him because he was a Dhampir. Heinz had changed his way of thinking and become part of Alda's peaceful faction after seeing Vandaloo's mother, whom he had captured and handed over to a fanatic as part of a request, tortured and burned alive in public. "Don't fuck with me!" Logically, it made sense why things had turned out like that. Heinz was probably unaware that Vandaloo had survived. He was under the assumption that Vandaloo had died long ago. Vandaloo's existence was only known to a very few, some individuals of the Merg Shield Nation and Amid Empire, as well as the pure-breed vampires. It was not strange to think that Heinz didn't know that he was alive. That was why he was atoning for his past deeds. It was a common story that could be found both in fiction and non-fiction books on Earth. In order to apologize to the people they had killed, they would live on and atone for their sins. They would save as many people as they had killed. Feeling guilt over the innocent civilians of the enemy nations they had killed in war, they would spend the rest of their days atoning. It wasn't unusual or anything. The examples that Vandaloo remembered best were indeed from works of fiction. Someone's mistake would cause the death of another without it being punishable by law. Despite remaining free, the person would feel tormented over it, and then the protagonist of the drama or manga would tell the person, "Keep helping others until the day comes where you can forgive yourself." Protagonists would tell former villains, "Atone for your mistakes with your future deeds." Heinz was atoning for the wrongs that he had done to Darcia and Vandaloo. He was putting the peaceful teachings he believed were to be correct into practice. He had saved that little girl, the Dhampir. Nobody had asked him to atone, and yet he was atoning in a way that was completely unrelated to Darcia and Vandaloo. "Don't mess with me!" So was Vandaloo supposed to forgive him? Was he supposed to stop blaming him? Was he supposed to stop trying to kill him? It was out of the question. There was no way that Vandaloo would even consider accepting something so unreasonable. Imagine if there was a foreign serial killer who had killed numerous people in a certain country and then saved a number of people in his own country equal to the number of people that he had killed. If Vandeloo was supposed to forgive Heinz in this situation, then the bereaved families of the people killed by the serial killer would have to forgive him as well, wouldn't they? If Vandeloo saved as many people in the Orbaum Kingdom as people killed in the Merg Shield Nation, would the bereaved families in the Merg Shield Nation forgive him? Certainly not. There was no way that they would. There wouldn't be thousands of unusual people who would forgive him. But if everything was made clear, every single person in the Orbaum Kingdom would tell Vandeloo that he should forgive Heinz. They would tell him to forgive Heinz because he had saved many people, because he had achieved great things, because he was a hero. Because, from now on, he would save many more people, ease the unhappiness of thousands, of tens of thousands. He would make the people happier. Heinz's existence was beneficial for the nation. They would tell this single Dhampir who hated him for killing a single person, his mother, to forgive him. This would be considered normal and undeniably correct in any world. The fact that Darcia was killed, the hatred boiling up within Vandeloo, everything would become details in the moving tale of Heinz. Forgiving him was the correct thing to do. Forgiving Heinz, who went around saving Dhampirs like that little girl without being asked, was for the sake of everyone's happiness. And even that would become another detail to be added to Heinz's story. How could Vandeloo forgive him? The level of the grotesque mind skill has increased. You have acquired the abstant skill. But Vandeloo would endure for now. Heinz believed that his deeds were done in atonement, but even those achievements that he used to gather more popularity. However, Vandeloo was currently unable to defeat him. Even if he used death attribute magic and all kinds of skills, even if he asked Eleanor and the others to work with him, no matter what he did, he could not win. This was vengeance. For Vandeloo, this vengeance was a process necessary for accomplishing his own happiness. It wasn't the result. The level of the grotesque mind skill has increased. The level of the abstant skill has increased. But this hatred could not be suppressed. The fire of hatred could not be extinguished. Vandeloo felt as if his heart would freeze in place with the chill of fear. "Hi there, it's this one. Hurry up and capture it. That brat had silver coins. There should be some left. Leave it to me, Oba-san." That was the reason why Vandeloo had run away from that place. That was why he had left the city and come out to a place like this. He had to make sure that nobody would get involved. "To think we'd find it this quickly. We've finally run into some luck. I'm sure it's because we've been behaving well every day. Don't think badly of us. Because of the economic slump, selling fruit isn't enough to feed myself and get by. You don't need to worry. With your looks, I'm sure whoever we sell you to will take good care of you." "Is this brat a boy or a girl? If it's a girl, she's not old enough to sell for much, you know." "No, she has odd-colored eyes. If we tell the buyer it's a Dhampir, won't we get paid more?" "Don't even bother. What are we going to do if that problematic A-class adventurer Sama gets involved?" "Now that you mention it, the savior has come to this city. His name was Heinz or something, was it?" Heinz. The one Vandeloo hated so much was Heinz. "Cut the chatter, quick. Tie the kid up and take him back to the city." The middle-aged woman who had been selling the apples in the marketplace approached Vandeloo, who was kneeling in the dirt, completely motionless. "You have acquired the scream skill." Surprised by the unintelligible noise that Vandeloo was making and thinking that it was some kind of incantation, the woman and men who were with her hastily tried to grab him. At this moment, if they had done everything they possibly could to escape, they might have been able to survive. A fearsome scream was released from Vandeloo's mouth. The levels of the scream, mental encroachment, and labyrinth construction skills have increased. The woman and men screamed, as if in response to Vandelou's scream. The color drained from their hair, and the light of consciousness faded from their eyes. But the middle-aged woman and the thugs led by her nephew were not dead. They were moving vigorously. They were driving their fingers into their ears to try and stop the scream, biting their tongues into pieces and gouging their eyes out. But as if still unsatisfied with this, they used their eyes that should have been unable to see to find and seize each other and begin killing each other. "Hate! Hate! What do I hate? Kill me! Kill him! Kill who? Kill everyone and him? My ears, my eyes, my tongue, my hands, my flesh, my organs, they disgust me!" As Vandeleur felt a sense of liberation, as if the darkness gathered in his heart had been released into his surroundings, he lost consciousness. Feeling good, Vandeleur opened his eyes. He looked up at the sky to see that it was still the early afternoon. He had gone to the Adventurers' Guild before noon, so only an hour or two should have passed, but he was in a bright mood, as if he had woken up in the morning after a sound sleep. "But I feel really tired. A pleasant sense of fatigue?" Confused, Vandeleur checked his status to find that he had almost 0 mana remaining. What had he done while he was asleep? Although there were bloodstains around him, there were no undead. "Vandeleur-sama, are you all right?" At that moment, Eleonora descended from the sky and forcefully lifted Vandeleur up into her arms. "Ah, yes, I don't have much mana remaining, though. By the way, what exactly happened here?" Vandeleur asked. "That is what I want to ask," she told him. "You said that you would be finished quickly, so we hid and waited, only to see you rush out of the guild, fly over the outer walls, and disappear somewhere. We couldn't even get into contact with you. Do you have any idea how worried we were?" "I'm sorry for making you worry," said Vandeleur, letting his body weight rest on Eleonora, who was holding on to him tightly. After using the goblin head communication device to contact Braga and the others who had been searching elsewhere, Vandeleur explained everything in chronological order. "Vandeleur-sama, let us conquer and destroy this realm." These were Eleonora's first words when he finished. Her eyes had taken on a glassy appearance. She did not appear to be joking. "No, we can't win against Heinz right now," said Vandeleur, "and even if we could, we can't conquer and destroy the realm." Zran, as well as Nuaza and Borkus, who were talking through the communication devices, were in agreement with Eleonora's suggestion. It was unlikely that Sam or Zadiris would object either.
"Why not? Let's slaughter them," said Zran. "Holy Sun, they are not humans. They are mere piles of excrement in the shape of people, living incarnations of evil," Nuaza exclaimed.
Borkus
roared. "Let's butcher all of them, kid."
Borkus and the other undead titans had learned of the Hartner Duchy's betrayal of 200 years ago. It would be an understatement to say that their previously favorable opinions of the Duchy had plummeted into the ground. It seemed to have pierced the heavens in the negative direction. "I'm happy that you're all willing to get so angry on my behalf, but there are about as many good people here as bad ones in the Hartner Duchy," said Vandeleur. "Right, Braga?" Taken aback, Eleonora and Zran looked at the black goblins and their partners that were with them. We have already abandoned our homeland," said Mary. "Please do not be concerned about it," said another girl. Vandeleur had explained to them that he would release them with enough money to live for several months, as long as they kept his secrets, but they had decided to follow Braga and the other black goblins. They felt grateful to Vandeleur from the bottom of their hearts, as he had cured them of their drug addiction and removed their slaves' collars and tattoos with magic. Of course, they had their own interests in mind, and perhaps they simply couldn't believe that Vandeleur would really release them. But they had chosen to come to Talosheim, and unlike those of the Merg Shield Nation's expedition army, it was definitely possible to make peace with them. As such, these girls who had been born in the Hartner Duchy were now citizens of Talosheim. Well, a third of the girls who had been working in the brothel were actually former refugees from the Sauron Duchy, but that wasn't something to be concerned about. Saying that everyone in the Hartner Duchy should be killed and that they were all incarnations of evil in front of these girls would make them feel uneasy.
"My bad," said Zran. "I lost my cool there."
"Indeed, I'm sorry," said Eleonora to the girls. "It's not like I was unaware that many of your circumstances are out of your control, either."
"No, I couldn't say anything either. Thanks, King," said Braga.
"It's nothing," said Vandaloo. "After all, I made a mistake after losing my cool just a short while earlier, too." Seeing that everyone seemed to have cooled off for now, he stood up. "But if we simply keep allowing ourselves to be treated like this, we'll be nothing more than prey to be eaten by beasts. We will have our flesh picked at, our organs gouged out, and our bones sucked clean. We must take back what has been stolen from us and make them think it was an accident. As for Heinz—"
He paused.
"We'll leave him be for now. We'll gather strength and wait for an opportunity. And I'll give up on the Hartner Duchy," he added. Everyone stared at Vandaloo blankly in response to his last sentence. "I'll give up on registering as an adventurer in the Hartner Duchy, working here and conducting trade with it in the future," he said, elaborating. That was how much the Hartner Duchy had rejected the Titans. If they were going to reject Vandaloo and Talosheim so strongly, then he would return the favor and abandon them. Excluding the cultivation villages," Vandaloo added. Everyone other than the goblin's partners laughed, muttering, "I knew it." "By the way, Vandaloo-sama, what is this?" Eleonora asked. "Has this boulder always been here?"
"It's certain that this is no natural boulder," said Zran.
They were looking at an enormous boulder that towered upwards behind Vandaloo. It was far larger than a tree in a forest, but its shape was stranger than its size. It was shaped like a huge skull, and its gaping mouth was large enough to fit a carriage inside. The inside of that mouth seemed to be connected to something. Warm air was flowing out from inside, as if the skull was breathing. "At the very least, it's something that's harmless to us," said Vandaloo. "The levels of the labyrinth construction, scream, automatic mana recovery, death attribute charm, and surpass limits skill have increased."
Skill explanation. Scream.
A skill that produces effects through an emitted sound. Bat's ability to see things through their cries and special sense of hearing, or at least this is how it is commonly interpreted in Lambda, though it is actually sonar. The effects of Mandragora's cries and Banshee's screams come from this skill. Because Vandaloo uses this skill simultaneously along with the soul break and mental encroachment skills, in addition to dealing damage to mana and the sense of hearing in a wide radius, he is also able to perform an attack that causes its victims to die a most terrible death in insanity if they lose the mental battle with themselves. It can also simply be used to make one's voice travel further without losing any clarity. This allows the user to perform a speech without the need for a megaphone or microphone.